Hello there. I would have watched this competitive stream thingy live, but unfortunately, I was sleeping. I'll just be watching through that real quick and give you my honest opinion afterwards. If there are any good reactions to anything that happens, I'm probably gonna cut them in or try to do so at least. Um, I haven't really seen anything like spoiler-wise from it. Just seen that they were talking about like new FOV or whatever. But aside from that, I haven't seen anything particular. Yeah, this might not even be the best video for like my general audience, much rather for the devs, because I think some of them would care about my opinion on that. Yeah, we're just gonna look through it now. Okay, I'm done with watching the stream. I skipped some parts of the esports stuff and a bit of the quality of life changes because it's pretty obvious that like bug fixes and stuff are gonna be good. Like bug fixes are positive, so there are no real like two opinions on that. I wrote a few things down that I want to talk about that devs said during the stream. Starting off, balance can be on either team, is what Nigel said. Maps are balanced and maps are not compatible with the game is something that I wrote down for myself. The balance can be on either team. This is in itself correct, but the balance that in general comes in gameplay does not come from the map for the most part. In COPS, you have maps that, in terms of their layout, are utterly T-sided, but in actual gameplay are completely CT-sided. For example, the new kennels. The entire A-side area is unretakeable if played right, and you just need to get the side once. You literally need to stack A side basically every round as a CT to be able to win any CT side rounds on kennels. But if you've ever played kennels, you know that this doesn't happen because like no one plays like that. No one has the far side to play like that, and actually playing like that doesn't work because you have you just have angles like A main where people walk into your crosshair and you spray them down, and you don't need to really do much for it because you have aim assist. There's so much more that goes into how the map actually plays out, and that offsets a lot compared to what the map actually was intended to be played like. And that kind of maps are balanced. They aren't. Half of the maps are so CT side that you can be happy to win 1 or 2 rounds on T side. How is that balanced? It's literally impossible to 10 minutes into the game, if I lost on cannons, for example, if I lost 4 rounds on CT side, I'm already pretty certain that I'm going to lose the fucking match, right? No matter how bad the enemies are, they don't have to do anything. They just have to stand there, wait for people to walk into their aim assist, and that's it. Like, why? Like, the maps in itself, like, don't get me wrong, the maps are good. They look good, but they don't work together with how the gameplay currently works. They work together with how the gameplay worked in fucking 2 years ago, but they don't work together with a gameplay that has way too high movement speed where the server can't even fucking comprehend what's going on. You hit everything while running, you can hit everything while jumping. The maps are not built for that, and they don't work for that. So it just makes really little sense. Moving on to what he said, the meta or keeping things fresh is like half of a sentence that he said there. I want to just cut this out of context. The meta that you have is not meant to keep things fresh. You're not meant to change the meta just because you feel like it, or just because maybe this could be fun. That's not how a meta is supposed to work. You have a meta that works the same way unless there is something that forces it to be changed. For example, something being unbalanced, or a new map being added that makes a certain gun type a lot too favorable. Something like that, for example. If you look at SOAR right now, on SOAR, for me personally, shotguns are fucking overpowered. On B side, you have like 6 or 7 angles where you just have to run in, and someone can just sit there with a shotgun easily and just pick you off. You have the same thing on reception, where you just have to basically walk into a crossfire where 2 Super 90s could be technically, and you have the same thing on pool on those stairs. You can't really clear those angles considering how random flashes still are, and we will get to that in a second because they showed something about flashes as well. But that's one of the things. The meta is not meant to particularly change unless there is a reason for it to. Then he said, we want to have more of balance for everybody. in the context of what he said around that, he meant that the game should be enjoyable for everyone, and I agree. I agree. Yes, it's a game that is both meant to be good for casual and competitive players. So there's nothing wrong with that statement in itself. The issue is that putting more work in should get you bigger rewards than putting no work in, and this is currently not the case in COPS. Like, no matter how well or how much I practice, I could literally sit here, practice my aim for 11 hours a day, and I could still not track better than an AI, an aim assist. An aim assist is always going to be better at tracking than a person, right? And considering the kill time in COPS being so low, you sit in a corner, you have someone walk into your crosshair, you have 4 shots with an AUK, he's dead. You know, in this time frame, aim assist is going to do all the aiming for you. There's nothing you need to do really in order to get the frag there. So yes, the game needs to be balanced and enjoyable for everyone, but the communities need to be separated in a way where competitive players or like the better players have their own game essentially in the ranked type game mode, and people who are not good enough to play this ranked game mode can practice the game in other game modes. But they said something about that, so we will get to that in a second. So Zankler said, do players know and have they practiced those aspects of the game? Those aspects of the game talking about tactical stuff, right? This is pretty, like, that people don't do that is pretty obvious looking at a video that I've made a few days ago where I look through a scrim from Ruthless with a CSGO Pro. And we came to the conclusion that they use a fraction of what the game could possibly give to them. And this is currently well visible considering that people have so much issues countering the Super 90. I agree that it's close to impossible on maps like SOAR, but aside from that, on most other maps, the Super 90 is easily counterable. Just no one knows how to do it, and this really shows the point. Like, we already had a Super 90 meta in 2018. Few pro players quit because of that, most notably Alpha. But in general, this never turned into a 5 people play Super 90 on every map type scenario that we have today, because people knew how to play against that, and flashes still work the way they are meant to, or not fully, but a lot more than today, right? Usually how you would counter a Super 90 is you flash the angle that they are holding and you try to get the pick as fast as you can. The issue with that is, number one, people tend to hold completely stupid angles with whatever gun, Super 90 being one of them. So it's pretty difficult to flash an angle on a map that has like people don't use cover on maps. They just sit in some corner. The only really important thing is that they see the door, because if people walk in, they get aim assist from it. But in itself, like, it doesn't really matter where on the maps you hold. Like, angles don't have a particular advantage or a disadvantage, right? It's head glitches, right? Head glitches shouldn't exist in the first place to that extent that they do in COPS. But aside from that, it's just there's no structure or consistency in how people play against it. Like, I can play on master level, and aside from Ventol on Burio, aside from that, literally every angle on every map is played differently by different people, which doesn't make sense. This is not how a meta works, right? Angles, there should be angles that help you a lot. Then there should be angles that are like balanced. You can use them sometimes, maybe they work, but sometimes they don't. And there are angles that are shit, right? In COPS, no angle is shit. The further you aim, the further you are sitting away from an angle that will sensibly be pre-aimed, the bigger your advantage is, because your kill time that you have stays the same no matter where you're sitting, because you just need to see the door. But the kill time of the person that peeks increases by the more you are aiming, the further you're sitting away from where they are pre-aiming. And this is in general a pretty shit meta, because in CS this wouldn't work, because in CS it works in the sense of off angles. Yeah, they're one trick stuff. You do it once a match and it works, and after that people will check it, right? But no one that is like good at the game will sensibly just sit in some corner and hope for nothing to happen, because maps in CS are generally built in a way where if you flash sight or if you flash anything to like push there, most of those stupid angles will also be flashed In COPS, this is not the case because half of the maps are indoors, and the other half of the maps suffer from the fact that flashes don't work the way they are intended in. Sometimes I look at a flash and it doesn't flash me. Sometimes I turn away from a flash and it flashes me, which, it's just no consistent gameplay. So, next thing, we want all the weapons to be used in the game. I dislike shitting on Zenkler because he's one of the more competent devs in the company. And I'm not really shitting on him, just have a little issue with the statement. We want all the weapons to be used in the game. This is never gonna happen. Like, no matter how, like the game and the maps are not versatile enough to have all the weapons be used. Like, no matter how much you change the meta or how much you make weapons particularly overpowered in some situations, like the Vector, for example, is literally superior to a shotgun if you push close range angles, which shouldn't really happen in my eyes, but who am I, you know? What do I know? So, aside from that, it's never gonna happen. Like, even in the best competitive games and arguably the most well-balanced game, CSGO, there are weapons that are not used in competitive. Like, basically all of the shotguns, P90 is not used in competitive. The LMGs are very, very rarely used in competitive. The auto snipers are very, very rarely used in competitive. And this is never gonna change because the risk you take by buying a gun that is so far off the meta and that you have so much less time using is so immense, and little of those guns that are out of the meta actually have any advantages above the guns that are currently in the meta, and that is why the meta works the way that it does in CS. And in COPS, this shouldn't be different, but in COPS, guns just are all the same. Like, if I peek a long range angle with a P90, with a Vector, and with an AUG, I'm gonna get the kill. Like, P90 is so fucking accurate for an SMG with like 50 bullets that has like the fire rate of fucking whatever. Like, this shouldn't happen. So, moving on, changing them means keeping things fresh, but also giving a new challenge to everybody. This is a perfect balance, what he's saying here. Keeping things fresh, I already mentioned that, it's fucking stupid, right? But giving a new challenge to everybody, that's something that makes more sense, because if something's new to the game, for example, look at CSGO and the SG and AUG meta, right? People put time in to explore those things, and people who put more time in and knew more about the new stuff had a particular and huge advantage over the people that didn't put the time in and look through all this stuff. This is how a game is meant to work. And in COPS, this is only the case if those major meta changes happen. This does not mean, though, that you should do a major meta change with every update. This means that the rest of the game is fucking shit in that department. So, moving on, what he said, it's great to see that there are different types of weapons being used, not just AKs. This is a pretty dumb statement, considering the fact that in COPS currently, no one notices a difference in terms of gunplay for the AUG, the SG, the M4, and the AK. It's literally the same gun. Like, one of them has a silencer, one of them has 100% armor penetration, and one of them has even less recoil than the rest. Aside from that, none of the guns has a particular spray pattern. They don't play differently, except for the AUG having 2 bullets more in the silencer. Instead of having everyone use the AUG, you have instead of having everyone use the AK like they used back then, you have 4 different versions of the AK. Which I don't really see how that's an improvement, but okay. So, next he said, if you have a team that always disbands after matches, what can we do about that in the future? So, this again shows how little of your game requires actual strats and planning and tactics and all of that stuff. Teams in CSGO, for example, Astralis, that stay together for so long and play on a top level for many years, right? Those teams have huge fucking strat books that Google for CSGO strat book or watch any analyst's video in CSGO. You just Google for it, right? Compare that to what's happening in COPS, and you will immediately see that CS has a lot more premeditation, a lot more strats. I can't even explain how stupid this statement is to just try to blame that on the player base, right? People don't need to stay together in a team for longer because all you need is aim and abusing aim assist. There are no strats required. You need to throw a flash and you have an entire bomb site, because flashes, or like 50% of the time, because sometimes flash just don't do shit. But in general, you need to know like 3 nade stacks, a few flashes, and like you write in the in-game chat. That's all the strats you need in COPS. And that's just fucking sad. Next thing he said was, you can plan ahead and look at, maybe this team is not as good on this map. Let me break something to you. At the time where you didn't give a shit about comp, or basically the entire company didn't, this was actually the case. People knew what maps were preferred by certain teams, and that's why those maps were picked in tournaments. You just didn't know of it. It happened. It was a thing all the time. I had a huge list in my notes of teams that sucked on particular maps, and particular IGLs calling particular things in pistol rounds on certain maps. For example, I knew most of the strats Samurai used in ASM. I knew most of Cheeseman's strats, or most of his defaults, and those things would put you up, would give you a decent advantage playing against those people. And it's also a pretty time-consuming thing, so it should be perfectly balanced, and should be advantageous to you to know those things. Those things that probably consumed like 500, 700 hours or something of my total playtime. Those things just don't give me shit today, because people in rank just play retarded to no end, and this is just something that shouldn't happen. Moving on. People are like, recording rules are pretty strict. Recording rules aren't strict. Recording rules just are pretty retarded, if we're honest. In a good game, it should be well visible if people are cheating. In 95% of the cases, if in a good competitive game someone is cheating, it's obvious to everybody. Look at the gameplay of Forsaken cheating on LAN for Optic India in CSGO. It's obvious that the guy is cheating, right? He's locking onto people for fuck's sake, right? The only reason why this isn't obvious in COPS is that everyone has a soft aimbot by default. It's called aim assist. This is the only reason why cheating is such an issue in COPS. If aim assist wasn't there, it would be obvious if people are fucking cheating, because no human can trace like an aimbot, right? Or not, at least not consistently. Like, you will have those situations of like top players, Simple, Shroud, all those people that are known for incredible aim, of tracing people like perfectly, right? But no one will be able to do that consistently, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is not gonna happen. So the only other way to cheat would then be to have radar or wall hacks in some capacity, which again is pretty obvious if you use it too extensively, because if you watch a match and you have headphones on, you know just about what information should be available to the players in every situation. If they consistently know things they aren't supposed to know, then that's pretty sus. And you know, in COPS this is not gonna happen, because sounds are random as shit. Sometimes there are just no sounds at all. Sometimes you walk over carpet and you have the sound of someone stepping on metal. You know, fucking whatever. So, moving on. We want more people from the casual side to watch Circuit. You know what you should do? Explain to people that clip hunting isn't impressive. It's not cool to hit noscopes or whatever. It doesn't show that you're good. It just shows that you have no life and no value for the use of your time, right? It makes no sense to, like, back then, why people watched competitive players, and why all of the biggest YouTubers and content creators were competitive players, from Twist to Angel to Mr. Bates. All those people, right? Aside from Ulsaman, Talk to Hand, I think everyone in the old generation of content creators was a competitive player. The reason for that is that people knew how gameplay worked, right? Back then, what people wanted to see was someone that wins top tournaments, you know? They watch you because you are good at the game and you consistently play against very good players, and they might because the game in itself is pretty hard, you know. They watch you for the sake of maybe getting a few tips out of it, maybe you know, just trying to improve themselves. Nowadays, people don't watch this type of content. Like, all they do is watch people noscope and have them put like fucking Sony Vegas presets behind it and think that they are the best editors in the world. I don't think that this is any type of content that is useful for everyone, for anyone. But okay, if people want to enjoy that, they can. But the point is, Have you asked yourself why that is? Why everyone's just watching people trying to hit no-scope clips instead of people who are actually good at the game? I can tell you why. The reason is no one wants to improve at the game anymore these days because you don't need to. All you need to do is sit in a corner, wait for someone to walk into your crosshair, and hold your shoot button down. No one needs to watch a comp player to understand that. You understand that by playing the game for 5 minutes. We want more people from the casual side to watch Circuit. We had that. We want to empower more community tournament organizers. We had that in 2018. I'm not gonna name anyone here, but there were more than enough community tournament organizers. And the issue is your own developer team fucked it because it took months for people for the community dev. For the dev that was responsible for that, to get back to you, handing out rewards and stuff. And I personally still have not received at least 40 or 50 premium cases from that time, which I'm probably never going to receive. I won Galaxy Draft, for example, and like a few other minor shit. And I had my own tournament together with an old friend of mine, Level Up League, which had to be paused because we just didn't hear from the responsible dev for about 5 or 6 months. And if you want to know why those community tournament organizers don't give a shit about the game anymore, is you didn't give a shit about them in the past, and they did everything by themselves, even even pay for the entire prize pools of the tournament, and you gave them shit for it. So I think you kind of deserve it to not have anyone want to do that for free. So next YTX quote: "We want to see some different kinds of events too, not just diffuse 5v5." I actually had a sniper TDM league with a friend back then, and you can already tell what happened. Fucking no one was talking to us. We didn't get any. We had players, don't get me wrong. We just didn't get. We just never heard anything from the devs. We didn't get prize pools, so that died pretty quickly. Again, it's the devs back then that had everything that the devs want now, and what they want now is something that they will not get unless they make the game as good as it was back then, which is very likely to not happen anytime soon. Moving on, Zanklar. New players may not play TDM until they have learned the game, but jump into actual matches straight away. This is correct, and the issue with that is, back then people saw or noticed of the game on YouTube. And as I already mentioned, most YouTubers back then were competitive players. So they were consistently putting out this positive type of content that showed people how to be good at the game, and maybe even posting full screens or at least highlights and stuff, right? That was the common type of content that was being produced back then. This type of content showed people how good someone can actually be. Because it features fully skill-based gameplay, right? Nowadays, the biggest content creators that are active, like aside from like Twist, because he was already part of that back then, Coolmark as well, but new content creators. Who do we have? We have Falcon, we have Stormed, we have Kippe, we have all those people, right? Most of them are clip hunters, or at least they're uploading clips. So the public opinion of what is considered a good player back then was, someone that plays top tournaments, someone that consistently not hits clips, but consistently has good performance against top teams. And what now is considered good gameplay is someone no-scoping a lot, someone hitting many quick scopes, And as I already mentioned, back then you needed some guiding from those top-level players to know what you're doing, and you needed to learn the game and how to actually play it, because you wanted to play as good as your idols, quote-unquote, right? Nowadays, all you have to do to play as good as the people that are considered to be the best by the community is to get into a public lobby and hit no-scopes. And considering that no-scoping is 90% random, basically everyone can do that. So there is no reason to learn the game, and there's no motivation for players to learn the game anymore. And this is kind of the issue that with that statement. What X? If you add TDM and illumination together, that basically adds up to diffuse. No, it doesn't. There is so much more going on in diffuse and in general ranked and competitive. Like I'm gonna use diffuse as because diffuse is being played in ranked and competitive. So what he's basically saying is that TDM and illumination together is basically diffuse. No, no, it's not. Like diffuse has so much more stuff that is not part. Like just looking at that statement. Neither TDM and illumination has anything to do with utility. Nades, flashes, smokes and stuff. Neither of those has anything to do with economy, which is also pretty important. Neither of this has anything to do with understanding stuff like map awareness and the timings, which are pretty important and no one gives a shit about anymore today. Because back then we had a huge graph that showed at what point could people be at what point of the timer, like if you just ran through, and that helped you to easily pre-fire people, which is something that no one gives a shit about today, and also which is something that you don't get that by playing TDM. You get that by looking through the game, you know? Moving on to what Zanklar says. If everyone is just a good player, if everyone is just a good aimer, then you are gonna get destroyed because then your strategy sucks. Everyone has to play his part. In itself correct, not practically happening in COPS at the moment because aiming has so much more of a standing in the meta than everything else, right? In CS, someone that has a lot less good aim than someone else, but in turn knows everything about flashbangs, knows everything about smokes, knows everything about nades. This person is gonna destroy the guy with better aim 95% of the time, because if you're full flashed, your aim is not going to do shit for you. If you get peeked from off angles, your aim is not going to do shit for you. Like, in COPS this isn't the case, because, you know, you have aim assist, so everyone is good at aiming in general, so everything else will only be influenced by, you know, who's the better device, who's the better ping, who's unlucky with like bugs and stuff, who abuses the most overpowered spots and peeks with his left index finger. You know, those things have so much more emphasis because aiming literally doesn't exist in the game, and everything else is inconsistent at best. Moving to what Nigel says, ranked is not just diffuse, that's what people get wrong by definition. This is in itself correct, but the issue with that statement is that ranked, the point of ranked is to prove that you're the better player. And you don't just want to be the better player in terms of aiming, which is what would be the case in TDM. You want to be the better aimer with so many more things that don't really exist in TDM or in any other game mode that we have in the game in the first place. So making ranked for any game mode except diffuse is stupid. And the reason why that is you would need to add an extra rank, like a different rank for that, to have like a TDM rank or whatever, or I don't know what mode they want to use for it, maybe elimination or whatever. It's just gonna be a cluttered menu like it is in PUBG Mobile. I don't think it will look shit. No one will play it. It's just gonna take player numbers away from the main modes that you want player numbers in. It's not gonna do anything. Just fuck it. Moving on, Nigel. Back when Vector was added, obviously everyone wanted to use it because it was new. And if a new map comes out, everyone wants to play it because it's new. This is wrong. This is so wrong and shows how little the devs understand about community, about the community and about like the competitive side of it. The reason why so many people play the new map is because not because they like it particularly. It's because they want to explore it, and because they have to look at it. They are forced to look at it because if a new weapon is added, like the current SVD right now, I think I am one of the people that use this thing the most. Like I'm using SVD pretty much like in every round that I can afford, and I think that it's a pretty good addition to the gun set. But this is the advantage it gives me because I can currently use the gun to its full potential because I've explored it. Right, I've put a few hours in, looked at how does the gun work, and I've explored it, and I can now use it. This applies to everything else. This does not mean though that those changes are good particularly. Like, if they add a gun right now, that is completely awful. That is not going to be used in any scenario. I will still have to put time into looking at it. If they add a new map that potentially sucks ass, I will still have to put time into looking at this map and exploring it and how to play it. This is going to take me fucking hours if I want to do that properly. I don't do that anymore because I don't play competitive. I'm not a player anymore. I'm not a analyst or something. All I need to do is understand how to play the map in ranked, or how it's meant to be played, which in general differs from how it's actually being played. But fuck it, right? I need to know how I want to play this map and how it will influence my playstyle, right? And this is something that will take hours. Not as much as it used to. As I already mentioned, I'm not an analyst. I'm not playing at the comp level anymore, so I don't care about that. But just in ranked in general. Like back then, it maybe took like 30, 40 hours in terms of work. Now it takes like 4 or 5 hours, whatever, right? But this does not speak of quality of the thing that you're adding. It speaks of the fact that some players still give a shit. This is not those things having a lot of playtime is not some incredible genius on the devs part. It shows that some people still give a shit. Moving on, we want COPS to be watched all over the year. This was the case when the devs still gave a shit about community tournaments and when people still wanted to do that because they had rewards from it, The way things worked back then was, if you managed to hit a certain viewer number during your live stream, the entire staff gets cases from it. If you host a tournament and get it to a tier 3 tournament, which was like the biggest, that had to have like certain requirements. You had to have a caster with at least a certain amount of subscribers. You needed to hit a certain number of viewership during the stream, and there was so much more stuff. Like, it was a whole list of it, right? If you hit that, you could appoint 5 staff members to community moderator, the blue in-game mod tag, right? From the point that this stopped existing and they discontinued this case reward for the staff, why would you do that? Why would you, from that point onwards, if there's nothing for you in the thing, why would you waste your time onto hosting a tournament, which also isn't cheap, by the way, like in terms of not just in terms of work hours, but also this includes working with sponsors or putting up the prize money yourself, which in both cases is going to cost money. No sponsor is going to work for you for free. They will want something in return. And if this is advertising space on your team's fucking jersey or whatever, or on your Discord server, on your website, all of those things, right? They are not cheap. Okay? Moving on. If you think about esports, it's basically a sport like basketball, and in basketball you have many smaller leagues that people play in until they eventually reach the Pro League. This is correct, but there's something that is being missed there. Sports is something that is entirely skill-based, right? If you're good at basketball, you're probably a tall guy, you're good at throwing, you're fast, you're flexible, you are agile, Imagine basketball, but for the people that aren't all of those things, like fast, agile, flexible, you give them a support, right? You maybe add like another basket that you can throw the ball in, but you put it at like ankle height, okay? And in general, then there will be more people that play basketball, right? But they will abuse this ankle height basket to hell. The issue is, for the people that are actually good at basketball and flexible and stuff, for them it will be easier to reach the top basket instead of the bottom one, because they're like 2 meter fucking 20 tall, and the top basket is like 1 meter offset from that, and the bottom basket is like 2 meters offset from their standing height. So they will take the top basket, but everyone else is able to take the bottom basket. So you essentially give people an equal playing ground, no matter if they are talented and put the work in, or if they are scrubs and don't know anything aside from, how to throw a ball into a hoop that is like at the height of their nuts. So this makes little sense, But this is what's being done in CIOPS, because you have aim assist, right? People that actually are good at something are not rewarded for it because you have you have aim assist, and you essentially give everyone else, even without putting the work in, the same rewards as the people who put the work in. This is fucking stupid. Why does this exist for like 5 years now? We have no idea. Moving on to the last point that I have from Wadi. We also want to work on the bugs. If there is something that gives people an advantage over other players. What are you exactly referring to? Is it iPads? Is it 120 FPS? Is it high ping? Is it aim assist? Please tell me, Mr. WatiX, fine sir. Like, the thing that you're currently trying to fight, like the thing that you're describing that you want to fight and remove from your game as fast as possible, is literally what your entire comp scene is exploiting. Your comp scene. The people that back then you shit on in exchange for casual players putting more money into the game. And now you're hugging them like, oh my god, our competitive scene, they're doing so much. They aren't doing jack shit. They're talking shit about you behind your backs. They are abusing your game to fucking hell wherever they can. No one would give a shit about those leg peaks. No one would give a shit about them. Except for the comps abusing them, showing them to the big world, showing everyone, yo guys, look, you can play like that. And no one can do shit about it because you literally have your head in the wall. It's impossible to die faster. Your comp scene showed this to your entire community, and the people you asked to fix that is the comp scene. Like, how fucking stupid can you be?